What's up, everybody? Alex here. Welcome back to a very special edition of the show. I'm really excited about this. It's something I've been kind of putting together over the last several weeks, months, what have you. And that is that is an interview with somebody that I have just a deep amount of appreciation and respect and admiration for. If you've been following my channel, I'm not like an interviewer type of person, although I do enjoy just having these conversations. But I wanted to reach out to this person for a number of different reasons. But most importantly, just because I simply love everything they do, how they do it, why they do it. And of course, it has the local Ohio connection, which is so important to me. So in this video, this is sort of the introduction, but in this video, I'm interviewing Terry Cole, who is the owner of Colemine Records, Karma Chief Records, Remind Records, as well as Plaid Room Records. So if you don't know, Plaid Room Records and Colemine they're operated out of the same sort of company. And so Terry Cole's been the owner, he's the founder, started Colemine Records way back in 2007. Sort of opened up Plaid Room Records, I think 8 or 10 years later. And it was just a really fun conversation. He's a super chill, cool dude. And we had some laughs and we're showing some records and all that kind of stuff. And just kind of walking through how he got started, why he got started, and everything about owning an independent record label and everything in between. So just a really cool time. If you don't know, Colemine Records began in 2007 as sort of an independent label focused on old school sort of funk, soul, and jazz. 10 years later, they started the Karma Chief label, which is sort of the sister label of Colemine for artists that don't necessarily fall within that niche. But I know a lot of you have seen these records out there. They're typically available for Record Store Day. These are compilations that they put together called Soul Slabs. The Colemine affiliated releases by this classic hype sticker, which we talk a lot about. And so, most importantly, probably for you, there is a giveaway with this. So, we'd love for you to watch the video, and at the end, we'll be doing a giveaway for a $50 gift certificate to Plaid Room Records. And so all you have to do to enter the giveaway is to just leave a comment on the video and what you would do with the $50, right? Like, what would you buy? What would you be interested in? We would just love to hear from you what you would want to do. So yeah, of course, we'd love for you to watch the video and the interview and all that kind of stuff. And I'll be ending the giveaway on April 1st. And so that'll be the last day to enter. I just wanted to get this done and out of the way quicker than normal. So watch the video. Leave a comment about what you would want the $50 or whatever for, what you would buy with it from Plaid Room Records. And I just had such a great time with this, and it's been something I've just been really proud of. And so I appreciate you all watching, sticking around, and all that good stuff. So without further ado, here is the interview with Plaid Room Records and Colemine Records owner, Terry Cole. Cheers. All right. What's up, everybody? Welcome back. A very special sort of episode here. I'm with the great Terry Cole, owner of Colemine Records, Plaid Room Records, and then some other stuff that we'll talk about, I'm sure, along the way. Terry, welcome. Just really grateful that you're here. Thanks so much for being here.
Cool. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I don't know if I'm great. I'm just okay.
We'll find out, right?
Yes.
We'll see how that goes. Yeah. So, we got, I think, a fair amount of fun things to talk about, probably some show and tell. I pulled a bunch of stuff. We show records all the time here, kind of what we do. Ooh. But wanted to, I guess, start with you and sort of how this all began for you. I mean, from my understanding, you were like a biology teacher or something, right? Mm-hmm. So as any teacher would, you start up a label and kind of go from there, right?
Base level. My brother and I, Bob, all of us actually, my brothers, our dad was a record collector, and so we just grew up in a house full of records. And as I got to approach like high school, I started thinking about how we were going to pay for college, and dad started teaching us how to like flip 78s and 45s and LPs on eBay. This is like late 90s, like the dawn of eBay sort of. So this is like early days of eBay, and it was a huge learning experience as far as like learning about different types of music, but also, entrepreneurship and, what that looks like and shit. And so I also became interested in like music production and like how to make records, as far as like creating music and yeah, like how the fuck to do that shit. And so I was in college. I got my undergrad in biology and my grad in ed, and I was in a band. And I was like making beats, like hip hop beats. I was in a hip hop band, and so I had this record done that I basically did as like a independent study in
Mhm.
composition. And so I had this like album done, and I wanted to put it out and sell it at shows. And so I made some CDs, and I wanted it to look legit. And so I just made up a record label at Subway in Oxford, Ohio, and was like Colemine. And the reason I didn't do COAL, because that's what I wanted to do, was because that record label already existed. So
Already
I was like,
exists.
all right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I was like, all right, well, I'll just be Colemine with my last name. And
Right.
so it was just, a thing to put on stuff to make it legit in my mind, or make it
Yeah.
look legit a little bit. And yeah, and then it was just a hobby for like 10 years while I was a teacher. I taught zoology and botany, and one day got real pissed off at my superintendent and got fed up with that shit and said, "Fuck it. I want to see if I can figure out a way to do this label full time." And so I drove down to Loveland in October, I think, of 2014.
Yep.
And I had just finished this big road trip the previous summer, going to like about 100 and some stores, like hustling the label to them. And, um, the label had like some momentum, but I knew I just couldn't quit and run the label full time.
Yep.
But I did feel like I could open a record store. I know how to sell records.
Yeah.
And so I hit up Bob, who had just finished grad school for computer engineering, and was like, "Hey, man, you want to not make money,
Right.
bro? You want to be poor as fuck?"
Yeah.
And
Do I have the opportunity for you?
yeah, I was like, "Man, I'm gonna get a pay raise potentially." And no, it was, but yeah, I hit him, and we didn't know what it was gonna be or how it was gonna do or anything. But yeah, that
Yeah.
was end of 2014, and we started the store in 2015,
Yep.
and that was sort of like the beginning.
So, one of the things as you're going through that, that in the kind of, record world that obviously, from the professional lens in and out, and, me as just a hobbyist, it's interesting the amount of people that I've met over the years that are huge fans of Plaid Room, and specifically this is outside of Ohio, right? I mean, the
Yeah.
Plaid Room sort of name has become synonymous with huge online, RSD titles, like things people. I mean, I have people across the country that are buying from
Mhm.
Plaid Room all the time, and then you have the coal mine side, which have like a lot of these people into sort of the old school but independent soul and funk and all that kind of stuff. But I think there's a lot of people that might not know that it's the
Oh,
same.
dude,
Um,
it's an everyday challenge.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
I
yeah,
mean,
I'm sure.
it
Yeah,
there's people that come in the store that might buy records at our store from our artists and don't know that that record was made upstairs, or like
yeah,
the person behind the counter played drums on the record they're buying or something,
yeah,
which is like, that's a sign of it working, because that means the record label is doing its job to like market our artists so that people are buying the records, not
right,
because of, they're not necessarily buying them because it's like a local thing or they want to support. They're just like, oh yeah, I just saw this on Spotify and I want to go buy it. Like
right.
that's some wild shit. That
Yeah,
means it's working. But yeah, it is hard, man, because there's plenty of people that come in the store that, they have no idea there's a record label upstairs. But it's also, people don't think like suburbia Ohio when they think successful independent record label. They think
no,
independent record label equals LA, New York, Chicago, Nashville.
yep,
Um, and also, what does a record label do? Like, that's the question. Like, no, it feels like it's sometimes, I think I've really boiled it down to some pretty basic shit, but it's like, it is a kind of an abstract thing to explain sometimes.
Well, and I think, that's a great, I guess, kind of segue too, not to go too much into the business side. I mean, unless you want to, but I think, uh, was reading that, especially in today's era, the idea of the independent record label, which I'm not a specialist in this area, but I think probably has ebbed and flowed over the years. Um, but you're kind of alluding to this, like independent artists, signing these independent artists. There's a lot of exploration out there. It's almost like this weird thing of I always like kind of would relate it back to like if I'm a supervisor and I did my job the best way a supervisor would, then the person I supervised got promoted. And
Yes.
and I wonder if an independent record label is similar in that way, where it's like if these artists blow up and they sign with more of a major label or something like that, there's like the sense of, well, okay, yeah, they're now doing that thing, but I also did my job in supporting them and giving them that sort of support that they needed when they were beginning. Is that sort of how you feel a little bit too?
It can feel that way, yeah, and I think you're right. Like sometimes you like I've made the joke of sometimes we do such a good job that we work ourselves out of jobs. You work yourself out
Yeah,
of a job, and it's
yeah,
like, which is like cool, but also like fuck, like
right,
So I think that really comes. We haven't really had that situation happen too many times, but some of it just comes with the territory. Like you can't know how to do everything in the beginning,
yeah,
right? And so you can't in a when you're making record label deals, everything is sort of a push and pull. You can't ask for commitment forever if you can only offer this,
right,
right? But if you can offer money, experience, connections, this, then you can ask for more. It's a tit for tat sort of thing. And I think for the most part, all the deals we've made over the years have felt uh, in line with that. Like I don't think we've ever over asked or under asked. And when we've been presented with situations of like having a larger record label override our deal or buy us out or whatever, uh, you know, sometimes it's ended up being like a blessing because
yeah,
you free yourself up to do more projects. Or in the case of like Duran Jones and the Indications, like we signed that record in 2015, and you know we didn't really, we had two of us, we didn't really know what the fuck we were doing.
right,
And so it's not like it was a license deal for like a few years, but that thing took on a life of its own, and we sort of had a decision. We could either ride out the term and probably be pretty stressed because we would feel like we were underserving the band or whatever, or limiting them with our resources or money,
right,
or we could sort of like find an override deal or a partnership. And luckily we found, I mean, an amazing partnership with Dead Oceans,
yep,
who is owned by Secretly Group.
yep,
And you know not only was that a good thing for us, like from a work bandwidth thing, and a good thing for us financially, but it also, we kind of got to like sit sidecar on like a record label campaign, a proper record label campaign, like a
yeah,
record label campaign from a record label that just knows how to record label very well, like the
yeah,
verb, whereas like Colemine, especially back in those days, like Colemine was built on like me curating and like cool designs and cool songs. And that's about
yeah,
it. It's not like people are like, "Oh, they fucking genius marketing firm." Like, no, we're just like, putting cool shit out. And so that was the vibe. But like a record label like Dead Oceans is just good at record labeling.
yeah,
People don't collect Dead Oceans records exclusively, but you go with a label like Dead Oceans or ATO
hmm,
or whoever because they are good at being a record label. And
yeah,
so yeah, but being able to sit sidecar with Dead Oceans on that campaign was like an amazing thing because we got to learn so much along the way, and that's
yeah,
invaluable. The Pumas is more of like a that was more of like a we need you out of the picture sort of vibe.
Sure.
So that was less of a partnership, but still sort of a blessing because like back then it was 2018, I think, when that first record came out or the first song. And I mean, back then it was still just a couple of us, you know?
Yeah.
There's no way we've been able we would have been able to properly serve that record, especially as it scaled to like
Yeah.
where it has scaled. So not only we even if it just did its thing organically, we wouldn't be able to keep up financially
Yeah.
or resource wise. So that's another one of those things that like I would have loved it to be like a proper Colemine release, you know, but it's like it's one of those things where I look back and I'm like, oh, I'm glad I went that way
Yeah.
because it gave us the time and money to do Ghost Funk and Neil's first record and, take lots of risks on the Karma Chief side of things. Fun fact, the reason there will never be a KCR 12,001 is because that was supposed to be the first Black Pumas record. So KCR will never have a 12001.
Well, there you go. And so was it the two? I know, was it the first Ghost Funk that was 2 or 3?
Hmm.
2.
2.
Okay.
And then
Okay.
Neil, I think, is 12,003, and then GA20 is 12,004, and Rudy is 12,005.
There you go. Yeah.
I
Well,
think.
and so perfect. I guess kind of segue too. So, I had to pull this, of course, because arguably where it sort of began
Oh wow.
was
Yeah,
was with this, of course, with the this has got to be you, right? I mean, the turkey gravy vinyl is just
it's me, buddy.
brilliant, right?
I love gravy.
But this was back when you were in Oxford, or as the people in Ohio call it, Ox Vegas. It's like where the
Vegas.
party really happens, right? I mean, this was I think the first thing you did was like, well, outside of what you're doing for what Soundscape or at the time, but the first 45 wasn't it?
Yeah,
Wasn't it Straight Fire from here?
yeah. It wasn't that version of it, but it is that it was the first song. Yeah,
Yeah.
the first recordings we made for that very first 45 were they were made in my elementary school. The
Wow.
elementary school I went growing up, and I did not know what the fuck I was doing. And then I kind of figured some shit out. And I remember the first song I made that's on that record that I like actually liked is BA. And I
Yeah.
remember being like, oh yeah, I like how this sounds. Like the drums sounded cool, the reverb sounded cool. And because I was just trying to figure out how to get my records to sound more like a Daptone record at that time. Like I was trying to figure out how I get this shit to sound like a Sharon Jones record or whatever.
Yeah.
So,
And I mean, these were, I guess this was 12,003.
oh
Um,
yeah, and coal mine, yeah, the coal
and
mine,
Coal
yeah. So,
Mine.
yeah,
But these
why
were songs that, I mean, you had been sort of working on for
a
a
little
while
bit, yeah,
before that. Yeah.
yeah. It's because the first catalog number is was the Ride Out and Terry Cole CD, and then Tough Junkie CD, who was a hip hop MC from Florida. Because like that's how the label started. The label started like underground hip hop shit.
Yeah.
Like that was gonna be the vibe, and then um but I also wanted to do some like lo-fi funk shit. And yeah, that's like the first like proper like coal mine LP. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And awesome. And whoever's playing bass on here, just ripping. So,
Wow, what a
I got
really good bass player. He
what a
must be
great,
I bet he's handsome
yeah, it's so I'm told. So yeah, no,
and humble and
well,
just
I
all
love
these.
it. Well, so I mean that mentioned before the coal mine thing, because I think this, I don't want to say it trips people up, but I think it's worth talking about, and I can show some more stuff. Is that you have the coal mine side, which I think was around for what 10 years or so, and then we got some of these other independent artists that we're really interested in, but might not fit into the musical sort of niche of the
Yep.
soul, funk, jazz sort of stuff, and so Karma Chief is born, which for all intents and purposes is what we call it a sister label or whatever else, kind of
Mhm.
housed under the same hat. But that was what, about 2017 or so that Karma Chief started.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And Black Pumas were the first band that we signed there because they felt like distinctly contemporary. Like it felt like okay, this is a good band to roll out a new label with, because it's like
Yeah.
similar to Colemine stuff, but distinctly contemporary and a departure. And so it's like, cool, this will be a good first step. Like
Yeah.
this won't like, it's not like we're gonna be like, hey, we're starting this new label, and the first band on it is like Norwegian death metal, and
Right.
people are like, oh, okay, that's
Which is
different.
not a bad idea, by the way. But
Yeah, man.
you're
Karma
right.
Chief. The reason we called it Karma Chief too is pretty funny. There's a dude who worked at the running store nearby, across the street from the store. It was called the Running Spot back then, but his name was Scott Carney, and he's such a nice dude, and he has real long gray hair, big Gandalf vibes. Just like ethereal, knowledgeable guy you just want to listen to, and
Yeah.
learn about life. So he would come in after his shift at the shop, and we just shoot the shit, for a few minutes before he went home. And running retail can be pretty tiring
Yeah.
and exhausting. And so we're commiserating, and we were like, man, whenever you come in, Scott, you always feel better after you come in. It's like you bring this like good karma. And so we're like you're like the karma chief, and that's where it came from.
I love that. Yeah. It's yeah. Well, and you make a good point too. I think there's get a lot of artists that are probably musically maybe on the edge, right? And then some that are obviously not Norwegian death metal, but pull some
Yeah,
of
yeah,
these.
farther away. Yeah,
But the other one that I want to talk about, because I remember this was a Record Store Day issue, I think a couple of years ago, is, and I guess this is probably the most recent iteration, is the Remind, um,
yeah,
with the Fred, or yeah, the Fred Davis Cleveland Blues stuff. And I mean, I'm a Cleveland guy. I think so much of how I got connected into this world was sort of the Ohio connection, right? Like there's a sense of pride involved with you being 80 miles down this, down the highway from me, and all this happening in Loveland, all this kind of stuff. And so
mhm,
as soon as this was out, I was like, yeah, no, I'm gonna have to grab this sort of thing. But now this is the sort of archival reissue sort of
yeah, for
series,
sure.
right? Of maybe finding some stuff that got lost in some kind of basement years ago and sort of bringing it back to life, right?
Yep, that's the vibe, and I hopefully we're not making any more record labels. I think 3 is enough. 3 feels like just enough. But yeah,
Just
exactly. So mostly like I think the Remind stuff started with just wanting to do stuff, put stuff on 7 that was like way, way impossible. Like it's crazy rare and like never gonna show up again. So yeah, licensing the rights to that for 45s. And then doing the same thing with LPs, like the Gloria Barnes LP. That was like just a crazy rare, almost like the sister release to that Lee Moses LP. And so it's like, yeah, somebody should do this record. And so we did that. And then the Barbara Howard, which was like a local thing, which is so cool to work with Stephen Reese and Alicia Reese on the Barbara Howard record, because that's Stephen's wife and Alicia's mom, and it's like so cool to restore that. And then the Fred Davis came through Eli Reed. His dad had made those recordings, and yeah, that stuff's that obviously the reissue stuff is very sort of opportunistic and
yeah,
like as it comes.
yeah.
Whereas Colemine and Karma Chief are like, oh yeah, we got
We
a
got this.
schedule and we got to, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, it's interesting. And maybe what I would want, I think the millions of people who end up watching this, Terry,
yeah,
um, to get across is that there are, friends of mine who are maybe not soul jazz funk people like I am. I have friends who are, but it was interesting. I mean, it was just several months ago. I was talking to a buddy of mine who he was doing I'll grab it here because I just thought it was so funny. He was doing like a top 10 of 2023 or something. He was doing one of those like YouTube, here are my top records of 2023. He
yeah,
goes, now this is a guy that I found this record or I streamed it and I had to buy it. This was amazing. This is like one of my favorite records of the year. And he shows this, and he's a country guy.
yeah,
I mean, he's like an Americana, kind of indie folk country guy. And he's showing this record. I'm sitting there, I'm like, Sam, I was like, that's a Karma Chief of Colemine, sort of thing. And I was like, the history with this guy, right? Like, who he plays with and all this kind of stuff. And it just blew up into this whole thing. And so, all that to say, it's crazy how obviously, and starting with this too.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
I will say this: I freaking love this. I mean, it's just not typically musically my bag. I appreciate it for what it is, but this was like this weird thing. I was like, this is like a cross between like it's like almost not quite Sweetheart of the Rodeo Birds, but sort of Birds E with a little bit
yeah,
of like Big Star worked in there.
yeah,
Got that weird. It's like this Americana slash power pop sort of thing
yeah.
with like
Andy's the
vibe. So
yeah, he's the power pop. I mean, that's the new record. His new record is like that comes out this fall is like really leaning into like the big star vibe. Like,
really,
yeah,
and that's
and like
another Andrew, or
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it's like I mean, I think he would say it has his best songs on it for sure, and it's like
yeah,
very catchy melodies and just like endearing lyrics and but it's way more yeah, probably way more kin to the Gabbard Brothers record than the
yeah,
Cedar City Sweetheart one.
yeah.
Probably more like a little bit more like Homemade. But yeah, man, he's got some fucking bangers on the new one.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, I'll add that to the list. I was gonna show you too. One of the things that really this is what kind of I think got me into the whole thing. Now, granted, several years ago, which is probably this is true. I'm guessing for a lot of people, and I'm curious how you know I'm guessing very successful for you was these guys, right? I mean,
Oh, yeah.
this was such a it still is all over the place, but especially was the the colored variants with the record store days and all that kind of stuff going on. I mean, I knew so many people who were getting into these comps, and this was my first thing before I even really knew what Colemine was. I had no idea it was down the road. I had no idea who you were, all those different things, and this was several years ago. This was three, so I mean, yeah, this was several years ago.
Yeah, we
uh,
got volume 4 queued up for next record store day,
Nice.
2025.
See, look at that. I already got you hear that you already know the first
In
title that's been announced for Record Store Day
Intel.
2025, right?
Intel. Dude, Carrie and Michael at RSD are like, "You son of a bitch, what are
You
you
just
doing? You
we can
can't
edit that out.
do
It's
that?"
fine. We don't want to get you in trouble.
Oh, no, that's
Um,
fine. They're
but
happy.
it was for me. It was the several months. I guess it was over the last summer into the early fall. I entered one of those generic sort of Instagram contests that people enter when certain places are giving free shit away, and I was the lucky winner of a stamper.
Oh, shit. Which one is that? Oh, damn. Close Enough Cigar? That's pretty hot.
Yeah.
It's a hot
So
stamper there, dude.
that's a hot stamper, as they say, right? Um, and it was so funny. I mean, I drove there real again, being so under, I guess, educated on all of it. But I was like, oh, I won this free stamper, and I was, it's like picking it up with it, and I was like asking, whoever was the counter, I was like, what do I do with this? And I'll tell you this because I thought it was the best response. You probably know who it was, but whoever it was, he said, "Well, if we go out of business in 10 years, you can make bootlegs with it." And so I
Oh,
was
yeah.
like, "Well, that's a great response there, right?"
There you go. You can
And I didn't
make
realize I was like, "This basically just looks like a couple of hubcaps," but
yeah, are there 2 in there? Are A and B in there?
yeah,
Hot damn, dude. Yeah, you can make a whole goddamn record there, buddy.
something happens. But to me, I was like, "Well, shoot," I was like, "If I got the stamper, I might as well buy the actual record, right?" And so, right, I was like, "I didn't even know what it was." And
Yeah.
like took it home, threw it on. I'm like, oh, this is my shit. Like,
Yeah, dude, Delve On, that stuff is so good. That first record too is just, like, exceptional.
yeah, yeah. And so, I mean, it's interesting that that was sort of the impetus in a sense of like feeling again like that local Ohio connection,
Mhm.
all this stuff that's going on literally down the street, and I mean that just opened up sort of the world of all these things going on. And so, yeah, since then it's been pretty full steam ahead, if you will. So, yeah,
Nice. Well, thanks, man. Appreciate it.
yeah, yeah. Let's see. So we'll talk. Last year was a huge year. I think you put out
A lot.
12 different titles, at least LPs. I'm sure there was a lot more kind of
Yeah.
45s and all that different stuff that you do, and still some of the partner distribution type stuff, and all that goes on too. not to put you on the spot, I'm sure they're like kids, if you can't really pick a favorite, but when you look back at maybe last year, what were some of the favorites to you that you're just like, you look at that and you're like, wow, like that was a home run. That's something I'm really proud of. That's something that stands out for me.
Oh man, let me look. Let me make sure I speak accurately. Look at all the LPs that we put out last year. I'm going to our web store. It's a pretty cool web store. Wow, this is a great website.
That's a great website.
This website is clean. Yeah, I think I have one that's like, it's not necessarily one, because they're all like, yeah, they're all special for all sorts of different reasons, like Kendra reissuing Kendra stuff was so cool. And like GA20's live record was recorded at Plaid Room. The Fred Davis reissue you already talked about.
Yeah.
Cedar City, that's how I met Andy, by hearing those songs on Bandcamp back in the day. That Closet Botnets record with Rudy, we had Adrian produce that. And God, that's one of my favorite jackets I think we've ever done, that Rudy record.
Yeah.
Ironside's record, we've been talking about doing an Axelrod thing with Max forever. Pale J, just like absolutely blowing the doors off. Black Market Brass, weird fucking sci-fi Afrobeat shit. Holy fuck. And then, I mean, yeah, and then like Kendra and Say She, like doing a brand new record with Kendra, one of the coolest album covers we've ever done.
Yeah.
Say She, absolutely blown up. Doing a full length with Michael now. But I will say, I think, like individually, a proud moment. I think that's a lot of records. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
That's so many. I think the Okonski record, I have a certain amount of pride for, just because, just simply because it was one of the first records that, well, two things. It was one of the first records that I felt like we had time, like we finally had time with, in between a record being done and when a record was going to be released, to like really think about like what our goals were with the record from a marketing perspective, and like having assets together. Because man, 2021, 2022, it was just like we were putting out so much shit and trying to catch up from the pandemic and stretch thin. And I hated that feeling of feeling like I left opportunities on the table, or like didn't push a record as far as I could have maybe. And so that was when we really started like make sure we had time to not only finish the record and make the artwork and all that shit, but also have time to talk about what is our goals for this record and execute those goals to the best of our abilities. So that's one reason that record is pretty special to me, because I feel like we really had time to do that and execute it. But also, that's the first record that I produced in a while.
Yeah.
And that was all done upstairs at the shop and mixed in-house. The artwork was done by Natalie, who works for us, or the cover painting rather. So yeah, it just felt like, and it's like the crew from the Indications. So it just felt like very much a family in-house sort of thing. And like, that really is what I want to do the more of. Like, I want to do less, so anyways, that's why, if I had to pick one.
That I'll tell you, that's a great choice. I was going to say, I mean, this became like the Sunday morning record of half my Sundays last year. I mean, it was like just, perfect jazz trio. I mean, it's just great stuff. And I think, it's funny you mentioned the ones that, stood out to me. You mentioned both of these, and maybe it's just probably, when I say stand out to me, it's really just referring to my style and the stuff I'm into. Like, I come from a more, I don't want to say like avant side, but we'll call it more of an avant. Like, I like the shit that's out there. And so both of these were just huge. I mean, both of these.
One of those things is not like the other.
You're right. Yeah.
Dude,
very true.
Black Market record is fucking wild. It's so cool.
Yeah.
But it's fucking amazing. It's fucking, we just got off the call with them this morning, and it's like, yeah, they were like absolutely pushing themselves artistically and like how fucking far can we push this? Like how? And I mean, in the Ironsides, that's the biggest attempt we've ever made at like those large of orchestrations and arrangements, and
Oh my
it's a
God. Yeah.
huge sounding record
Yeah.
because it
Yeah.
is a
And
big fucking band.
yeah.
I'm glad you like them.
No, so it's so good. I think, as I'm kind of, pulling some of these out of the sleeves and stuff like that, one of the things that, I think the people who watch this are probably going to be complete record nerds, right? Like they get into like the minutia of this stuff, which is, I'm sure
Yeah,
you do too.
get in the
Well,
minutia. Yeah.
we love the minutia, but one of the things, take the amazing artists aside and,
Mhm.
the label, all that kind of stuff. What I think has been something that I've really appreciated as a collector, as a nerd, the minutia, the whole thing, is all the things that these record people get really hyped up about, you all sort of excel at. So, what am I talking about here? Well, we have, we love a tip-on jacket, right? Like
Oh, I love
we
this. Yeah.
we love a tip-on jacket, whether it's Stoughton, inspired, or there's other we love the tip-on jacket. What else do we love? We love a hype sticker, man. I mean, there is nothing that we love more. And the joke is, but it's true, right? Of like the best hype stickers in the game. Like it tells you everything that the record person wants to know. We want to know who it was mastered by, where it was, pressed at. We want to know here's a little blurb of what you're getting into that perfectly sums it up, right? We love that
Yeah.
stuff. But you know what we love even more than all that?
Rice paper inner sleeves.
If you're not rice paper sleeving, I don't want it, man. We're record nerds, you know. But I'm sitting here and it's like, yeah, this is premium packaging. I mean, 1000%, the biggest, best companies in the world are premium packaging these things the same exact way, but these are $23.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And they sell them
And
for
that's
40.
amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. It's a thing that like, I remember when we really started shifting shit. It was because of Numero Group.
Okay.
Because I remember this is like 2015, I think. We were getting ready to press the Durand record, first one. And I remember I was like, we had a whole section for Numero Group. And I remember being like, God damn, man, when you look at the Numero Group section, it just shits on every other section because almost all of them were gatefold tip ons.
Yep.
And you just look at them and you're just like, fuck, man, like this whole section just fucks. Like it's just gonna just fuck all these other sections up. And so I was like, man, we should look into doing tip-ons. And so we did the first tip-on we did was Orgone Beyond the Sun.
Yeah.
And I remember getting them and being like, these motherfucking things are like books. Like
Yeah.
it was so fucking beefy. And so we did that for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 or 7 releases before they started to creep up in price from that supplier. So then we switched to Stoughton, and then shit got really fucked during the pandemic.
Yeah.
And so we had to try to find some sort of alternative. And we're still struggling with it because it's, and I think where I have settled, and I've had to compromise a little bit, is like, and this is way in the weeds, but um, let's say we make a record and we make 3 or 4,000 out of the gate. Not a big deal to do a tip on for me financially because the price break at that point makes sense. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
But then if we go to repress it, and let's say it's selling, fine. I'm not going to repress 2 or 3,000. I'm going to repress 1,000.
Yeah.
The price point for 1,000 fucking makes it kind of like not feasible, right? At least not feasible for pricing at $24.99 or whatever.
Right.
And so I think I'm at a point now where I'm like, all right, first press, we're going to try to do tip-ons most of the time. And then represses will not be because I'm like, and I hate that, but man, tip-on prices are fucking crazy. If you make 1,000 of a gatefold tip-on Stoughton, let me see what my last quote says. God, it's fucking nuts, bro.
We're just talking about a sleeve here.
Yeah, just the sleeve.
Not to say just a sleeve, but when you're
Yeah. Okay, let's see. Here, I have attachments here. Blah, 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 blah. Yep. Where they at? Where they at though? 5K, 2K. All right, 2K Stoughton non-gatefold, 260 per. God damn. 1K non-gatefold, 320 per. $3.20 per fucking sleeve. And
Yeah.
it's like the records cost 4 to 5 to 6.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, you sell a record at distro for $15.50, you get $12.40 from the distributor. That leaves you about $4 of profit. And it's like, fuck, man.
Yeah.
It makes it really, really hard to do that at that level. So I think that's where I'm at. I just derailed this whole shit. I'm sorry. But
No.
what you're saying, we started doing tip-ons and we got such positive feedback from customers, right? And from stores, because people started to recognize, like, oh, these people are record people. They get that it's not just like make some records.
Right.
Like, no, we want to make good records. We want to make records that feel good, that sound good. And yeah, all those other things that sort of come along through the years, like the rice paper inners and the hype stickers, were one of the first things we started doing because, in a record store of thousands and thousands of records, how is your shit going to stand out?
Yeah.
You have to make it obvious.
Yeah.
You can't just be like, artists generally hate having that conversation too, because it really reduces their art down to like 4 to 6 words.
Right.
And usually genre words, which artists hate because they're like genreless, bro. I'm like this and this, and it's like, yeah, but what really the fuck are you? Like, what are you doing?
That's fascinating though to me, because I think, I mean, I can speak for myself, but I don't know about other people. But when I was getting it, to me, it was the hype sticker and the explanation, the blurb, that made me go like, oh, I can get into this. Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think it's like a fine line of like describing kind of what it is in a weird way.
Yeah.
Like, I think maybe one of our best hype stickers ever is the first black market. I don't know, we got a lot of them. I like being confident on the hype stickers too, like really like, here's what it is.
Yeah.
But like the black market brass one, I think from the very first one, that hype sticker I think is like peak hype sticker marketing. Hold on, it's right here. What the fuck do we put on here? And I think this is all the dudes. They came up with this. A noxious mix of diesel and bleach drenched Afrobeat. Like,
I need it.
That's a fucking hype sticker. Like, if I see that, I'm like, boo, buddy, I better pick that shit up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, hype stickers are crazy, crazy important to me. And I think I remember we started doing the blue tops on all of ours to try to just like, just like a branding thing. So that when people see that, they're like, and also I do think our hype stickers are like crazy informative. Like, they literally tell you how many out of however many for the color. Yeah, like you said, the vinyl cut, who cut it, who mastered it. If there's any other little things that need to be on there, it's like, it should perform a service. It shouldn't just be like, includes download card.
Right.
Rolling Stone said this is a cool record.
Some do.
Some of them just say includes download. Yeah, some of them do. But it's like, yeah, it's weird when you see a record not have a hype sticker, to me.
Well, to the original point, it's interesting, right? Like, to me, all that plays into this brand, right? That, like, telling you this, right? Like, not only is it great music, it's great artists, but there's a brand excellence associated with what you do and what you have done, and that all plays into it, right? It all plays into it. I mean, I think the fact that you still are cranking out 45s is like the coolest thing to me, because, like, to me, that is something I'm like, who's doing this? It's like, there are not people who are doing that. But there's such like this, I feel like there's like such this ode to the past, in a way of basically, on what you said, how you grew up and, flipping 78s and 45s and all that kind of stuff, right? Like,
yeah, man, for sure.
you become like the record, the record collector's record label, right? Like that is sort of how it's at least being portrayed, but in a genuine, non-pretentious way, right? Does that make sense?
That's like the highest praise you can give, man. I appreciate that. That's so kind. I think um that's always how I always want this brand to be unassuming and distinctly Midwestern in its philosophy, not necessarily musically, but like distinctly Midwestern in its like approachability and sincerity and authenticity and like high value, like that is Trader Joe's of record labels or something, like
That's what your hype sticker would say.
dude, that's a whole campaign right there, man. The Trader Joe's of record labels. And just like Trader Joe's, if you come to the shop and I ring you out, I'll fucking talk your arm off about whatever the fuck you bought.
That's
Like,
right.
oh my gosh, you bought that? That's crazy. Steve is working on a new thing right now. That's wild. Hey, so what are you getting into this weekend, huh? Oh, you're going a little camping, huh? That's cool. You
You're the
married?
Trader Joe's of the record world. I love that.
Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, I think I appreciate. It's good to hear that that's perceived because sometimes you don't. It's hard to know. It's easy to get lost in like the financials of it sometime and going like,
Sure.
fuck, man, do people even fucking care that we're doing all this shit? You know what I mean? Like, do people even care about tip-ons? People even um and we've switched a lot of our records over to these direct to board jackets, which I really do like.
Hmm.
They're 100% recycled and they feel really good. They're not tip-ons, but they feel really good. Like Black Market Brasses, that Hawks record is one.
Yeah.
Andy's Cedar City, that's in that same jacket. Fred Davis in the jacket. Like those jackets feel really good.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the thing. I think it's less about like what's the brand and more about like how
Yeah.
does it feel, right? Yeah.
Yeah, when you get a fucking piece of shit, you know it. When you
It's like
get like the cheapest of the cheap, you're like, okay. Like
it's like those old records from like if you had like a UK press and it's in that like super wobbly like sleeve
yeah.
that just makes you like, wow,
Dude,
okay.
if I could figure out a way to make those though, that'd be a whole thing. Like, dude, making those like they're so thin and laminated. They're like
Yeah.
crazy thin. It's like,
Yeah.
man, that would be a whole thing if I could. I think I actually did try to go down a rabbit hole and figure out how to make something that dorky.
Yeah.
Uh, but everybody was like,
Maybe they'll be cheaper.
ironically, I think they were actually way more expensive. And I was
Yeah.
like,
We're paying
"Fuck,
$6 for a sleeve now. Yeah.
what are we doing? I think one of the that Unipack we did for the Harlem Gospel Travelers, that was a fun jacket experiment. That fucking GA20 Hound Dog Taylor record that was like a folkways vibe.
Yeah.
That's one of the most expensive jackets I think that might be the most, that or say she's silver.
Yeah. That's a, let
That
me,
was a That's not even tip on. That's just direct to board. But that silver board on all sides that ain't no joke.
yeah. Oh yeah. We did have that. Well, and as we sort of we're into, what month are we in? We're in March. All right. So almost Q1 is almost out the way.
Wow,
Um,
wow.
sounds like a lot going on. We got some big stuff. This to me was just unreal.
Yeah, man, that record crushes.
This absolutely. I mean, these guys again, like in terms of the music on the labels that I'm into, like Ghost Funk for me is just outstanding. Um,
Yeah, I think at this point they've done the most records with us of any artist.
gosh,
This is
so
like
there's
four,
five, I would
four,
say.
and then we reissued their EPs as a fifth.
Okay, yeah. And the 300 limited web store. I mean, that's key there, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
dude, we're getting back to the old days, man. It was pretty
yeah,
wild. Like it was like dude, Ghost Funk's a great example of like what the ebb and flow of pre, post, and during pandemic looked like for record labels making records because like but I think we've got it. I think we've settled back into normalcy now. Like we're back
yeah,
to like, here's how many we should be pressing.
yep,
As opposed to like, man, during the pandemic, we could not find the ceiling.
yep,
Could not find the ceiling. And then as we came out of the pandemic, we realized that we also lost the floor. because you were like looking for the ceiling, and then all of a sudden the fucking floor dropped out, and you're like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah.
You know, those were some hard releases there in that transition time.
And when I talk to record store owners, it's a similar kind of thing. I mean, because I speak from personal experience, records were my COVID hobby. You know, I didn't own a single record more than 4 years ago. And it was I don't have anything to do. I love music. And I thought back to when I was in high school and collecting physical media, and I wanted to casually get back into that. And so the amount of people who probably rushed and were a part of that at the time, and then obviously we regress a little bit more to the mean, and obviously there's a lot of adjustments with that. So
yeah, man, it was weird. But this one, we really spent a lot of time trying to, and Ghost Funk, we actually had data for, so it was useful. Like we had data points pre-pandemic, during the pandemic, and then A New Kind of Love was sort of like post-pandemic. And so
yeah.
we actually had data. So coming into this record, I think it's the best GFO campaign we've ever run for every reason: press, radio, and like quantities of everything. Like I like when shit sells out. Like a 300 run, that's fun.
Yeah.
It's just fun. I don't, we started scaling stuff up during the pandemic, and we had to, but I regret it because it's like I like 300 and 500 limited edition shits, and the shit's like gone.
Well, as I was just checking the calendar here, in about 2 weeks, we have The Sinceres.
Yes.
And by the way, I do have that on pre-order, but I don't have the limited to 600 because that sold out like that.
It did.
So yeah. I will, as they say, settle for the turquoise.
Which, dude, the turquoise is gonna be gone. We did a shitload, and it's still gonna be gone.
I've been, obviously just following you all on social media and just seeing how quickly that sold. I'm like, that is gonna be a banger, an absolute banger.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. I wonder how much that, dude. I love playing the Discogs game and fucking seeing. Also, sidebar, I love the people that police Discogs. It's so funny to me. I love nothing. I saw the coolest thing on. I'm looking up to see how much the trip to the moon is going. What was our variant? The purple one.
It was the purple, yeah.
Damn, son! Only one copy available for $40.
That's a good deal.
We are practically stimulating the economy over here. But honestly,
it's actually it's mine, by the way. That's me.
Nice, sick, bro. Fucking flip that shit. Honestly, though, it sounds stupid, but that is one of the very few metrics that we have to sort of like see how we did as far as like pressing quantity and like if we have bubs that run record labels and like we'll get their records back in the store, and I always feel like shit when we only pay like $4 because we're gonna price it for $8 because they either made too many or they made too many of a variant or it was a subscription. But it feels good when like if I see that $40, the median is 37. Fuck, that shit was for $23.99 on our website. I was like, that's a win. Yeah. That means that we did it just right, because we sold out and we punished enough people so that they won't make that same mistake the next time.
I am kicking myself for not getting that exclusive for the Sinceres. I mean, that was like I think it was like a red cobalt sort of looking.
Oh yeah, it's pretty wild looking. The coolest thing I've seen on Discogs here lately is that somebody added my mom as a Discog contributor because she's credited as like proofreading stuff.
Amazing.
Dude, how this shit came up yesterday. I'm trying to become a Grammy voting member. Yeah. And so I was like, somebody was like vouching for me and they sent my Discogs credits. And I was like, I don't even know what the fuck my Discogs says. And so I I'm like, why the fuck of all the things you could send, guy? Why are you sending my fucking Discogs credit? But okay. So I go look and see what my page looks like. And it says like Terry Cole, owner, founder of Colemine Records, son of Tracy Cole. And I was like, what the fuck? And so I hit mom, and there's all her proofreading credits. So I text her. I was like, yo, mom, you did it. You fucking made it. You're on the
So she's gonna be the one that actually gets you the job, right? Like she's
Yeah, they're gonna be like, oh well, if his mom seems nice,
yeah. I mean, if her mom's Tracy, she's all right. Yeah,
yeah, she seems like a nice lady. Yo, but I mean, man, for real, that feedback on Discogs, that's always a good like. If the medium price is like is like maybe 50% above where we were selling, I'm like, cool,
yeah,
perfect, because that
yeah.
keeps it like that means it's moving for record stores. That means it's because if you go on there and you just see like tons of them listed below list, it's like, oof, it didn't sell at stores,
Right.
and that's
Yeah,
no good. I don't want that.
yeah,
So I love that data. Discogs
yeah.
has such fun data.
Yeah, absolutely. As we continue, so we obviously got that
Oh, sorry.
Sincere's coming up, which is going to. Oh no, I mean, I think just that's awesome stuff. Obviously great stuff with Ghost Funk Orchestra earlier this year. You mentioned Andrew Gabbard coming out maybe end of this year. Looking at his new
Yeah,
record, yeah.
let me pull the calendar up, man. Let me see what else we got.
And
Think,
obviously, you don't have to indulge anything you don't want to, but it's
who
we're
cares?
curious.
YOLO. So let's see. I think we have an announcement Tuesday,
Okay.
I believe, from an Australian band. And then we've got
Maybe in relation to a certain recent partnership that was announced a couple weeks ago.
that would be accurate, yeah.
Okay.
So and then what else we got? We have a couple cool reissues, not reissues as in like archival stuff, but artists that we have signed and we're kind of like getting their back catalog imprint.
Nice.
So Charlie Be Real, we're working on his new record right now, but we're getting his old record imprint. Reverend Barron, who we've already released a record from, we're getting his original first record out and in print. And then the rest of the year is pretty fun. We got, let's see, Parlor Greens, Harlem Gospel Travelers, Pale J, Andy Gabbard, Kelly Finnegan. Yeah, it's gonna be pretty good. Pretty good
Yeah.
year. Maybe I think maybe that Aaron should be turning in his new record here too soon. So
Yeah.
should be a lot of fun stuff.
Awesome.
If you're a
Well,
Soul fan, and then I'm sure I know some of our other label buddies from Daptone and Big Crown have some pretty cool shit that we know about. And so yeah, if you're a Soul fan, you should just save your pennies, I think, because it's gonna be a rough one, I believe. But
well, I mean,
in a really
yeah.
in a really good way, in a very fun, good way.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, as I said beforehand, for those who have watched, thanks for making it the full hour, basically. And as I kind of said before, if you're watching, go ahead. The way I think we're going to do this here, we're going to give away, and I'm going to give away a $50 gift card to Plaid Room. Figure that's better. We would love Colemine, but you know what? Plaid Room might be a little bit more general in case there are people
Yeah,
outside of the
full
the
spectrum,
niche,
full
right?
spectrum offerings. Yeah,
But also, as we said before, I do think it's like I think there's something for everybody a part of Coal Mine, Karma Chief, Remind that I think people would be able to find and enjoy. But super easy to enter the giveaway. Just leave a comment, and I'm curious if you had the $50 gift card, what would you buy? Like what have you been waiting on? What have you been or something? If you had $50, what would you buy? So that's how you enter the giveaway. People just leave a comment saying what you would buy from Plaid Room with that gift card. And let's see, I will end the giveaway, whatever it is, on April 1st. We'll give a good 3.5 weeks or so
nice.
to do that, and maybe we'll April Fools it at the same time. So
Can't wait
that's
to
all you
have
gotta
that.
do is just leave the comment and say what you would buy, and that's and we'll do a random drawing from there. So
I can't wait to have the bots start commenting.
yeah, exactly.
Really, really blow it up, man.
We can't wait. It's all for the views, man. Yeah.
Well, man, I really appreciate you having me on. And you said so many kind words about the label, and it's really cool to hear, all those things. Just because, yeah, we're sort of, it's easy to get caught up in the weeds of all of it and sort of not being able to, see it through the trees sometimes. But yeah, it feels really good because yeah, we always do try to make records that are like high value, good records, and that sort of check all the good record boxes, because we see the sinners all the time in the store. You see them, and you're like, "Oof, can't believe they did this. 2 records in a single pocket jacket. How dare you?" Like, how could you?
Colemine, Terry would never.
Never. No, cannot do it. That was proposed in a meeting one time. Like, just put 2 records, make it a wide spine single pocket. And my face just was like, what? You can't be.
You fired them on site. No,
You can't be. Have you ever held a record before? Nah, bub. But yeah, thanks so much for having me on, Alex. I appreciate it, and appreciate the time and kind words and support and all that stuff.
Awesome. Well, Terry, I sincerely appreciate you so much, man, for taking the time. And yeah, absolutely. And again, people, leave the comment, do the thing. Thanks, Terry. This was awesome. I really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, no worries at all, dude.
Awesome. Take care, man. We'll see you soon. Bye.
All right, later.